Hi, I'm your host, Derek Williams, and welcome to MEP Live, sponsored by the Minority Engineering Program here at Purdue University. We call ourselves MEP. Now, founded in 1974, MEP strives to improve diversity and inclusion in the College of Engineering. MEP is open to any student. You don't have to join. And we offer many different types of services. And we'll probably mention some of those that I don't mention right now later on. We have an academic success center, free tutoring, professional development workshops, opportunities to network with corporate partners, meet alumni. Now, I also need to tell you that in addition to Zoom, you also have the opportunity to watch this episode right now or previously uh, recorded episodes on YouTube. All you have to do is go to YouTube and in the search bar, type Purdue MEP. Today's focus is meet our faculty. And before we do that, we want to first of all take time to meet our staff. And then we'd like to see who's out in the audience. So um, I'd like to first of all introduce to you our graduate students um, who are maybe not listed here just yet, but you'll hear them speak up. One of them is, her name is Bonnie Prado, and she's from Colombia, and she will be speaking up here and there throughout our conversation, as well as Vivek, who's from India. Both are graduate students earning their PhD in aeronautical engineering, and you're going to love them. So before this is all over with today, you're going to have an opportunity to hear from Virginia Booth Womack, who is the director of the Minority Engineering Program. But in the meanwhile, I want you to meet Tamara Markey. Some of them will be on this call at some point or other. Tamara Markey, and you can see their roles. Heather Core, Mary Kenner, myself, Carol Swally, and Dr. Jacqueline Gatson. Dr. G, are you on there? She's our interim associate director.
I
Dr. G?
am. Welcome. Hello, everyone. We're glad that you are joining today. Congratulations once again on your admission to Purdue University. We hope that you do pick us and join the Boilermaker family. We're delighted to have you. I know some of the names might have joined us before for the MEP Live series. Those that are just joining us again for the first this is an exciting opportunity for you guys to interact with our esteemed faculty, and we're just glad that they have turn it back over to you, Derek.
Okay, great. Now let's see who's in our audience. As I said before, we're going to give special time. Now, I'm also, since she's as the director, Mrs. Womack, anytime you feel led to chime in, feel free to do so. But let's meet our students so we can, because we want to make this as informal as possible. So as we look out in the audience, I'd like for you, as I call your name, I'm reading from Zoom, so this may not be your exact name. So if you would first of all, just tell us your real name, where you're from, and the type of engineering you're interested in. So I'm going to start with the top. First, I see Kunle.
Hi, my name's Kunloy. I'm from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and I'm interested in aerospace engineering.
Welcome. We have Alexis. Alexis Kindred.
Kindred, and I'm interested in industrial engineering.
Great. Craig Bush.
Hi, I'm Craig Bush. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm interested in chemical engineering.
Yes, and we have Lourdes Davis.
Hello, I'm the parent of Araceli Davis, a new
Okay.
FYE student. Thank you.
Great, we're so happy to have you. And then we have Rachel. I only see part of your name. Yes, go ahead.
I'm Rachel, and I'm interested in chemical engineering.
Okay, we're very happy to have you. We have Aurora.
Hi there. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm actually driving to work, but I'm trying to catch as much as possible. My son is Marco Valdivia, and he's coming from south of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and he's interested in both mechanical and biomedical and hoping to sort out or figure out what direction to go.
Thank you. Thank you. And we have Malcolm.
Yes, I'm Malcolm Wolfwork, and I'm from Indianapolis, and I'm interested in mechanical engineering.
Excellent. And then we have Ulam Funke. I may be mispronouncing your name. We have a parent, Ulu Funke.
Hi, my name is Lufunke. I'm a parent. So Kunle already talked to you. My son is interested in aerospace, and but he already accepted his offer. So
Yes. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. We have Angelica.
Hi, my name is Angelica Javeski, and I'm interested in industrial engineering.
Great. Great. Blake.
Hi, my name is Blake Neely. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I'm interested in aerospace engineering.
Great. Kai Gibbs.
Hi, my name is Kai Gibbs. I'm from around Philadelphia, and I'm interested in aerospace engineering.
Excellent. Excellent. And we have Cesar.
Hi, my name is Caesar.
Caesar, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I am from Northwest Indiana, and I plan to major in computer engineering.
Excellent. Great, great. And it says here, Nick Canovas, is that correct? It's all together. It says Nick
Yes. Yeah, my name's Nick, and I'm from McLean, Virginia, and I plan to major in aerospace engineering.
Great, great. And lastly, at least for now, because we know others will join, it says R.A. Anwisye.
That would be me and my family. Chibale Anwishe. I'm going to be in mechanical engineering, majoring in mechanical engineering.
All right.
St. Louis.
Thank you so much. So right now, we'd like to introduce our guests, our faculty. So first of all, I'd like for you to meet from Ag and Biological Engineering, Dr. Kevin Solomon. Also from Aeronautics and Astronautics Engineering, Dr. Alina Alexenko. From Materials Engineering, Dr. R. Edwin Garcia.
Hi,
From
everyone.
Mechanical Engineering, I'm sorry?
I just said hi.
Oh, okay. From Mechanical Engineering, ME as we call it, Dr. James Gilbert. Also from Electrical and Computer Engineering, Dr. Charles Bowman. And last but not least, from Industrial Engineering, Dr. Brandon Pitts. Now, we are just so delighted to have you guys. And we'd like for before we do anything, for you to tell us about yourself, your professional research interests, and about your engineering discipline. What attracted you to this area? And why do you think students should consider it as a major? So let's go ahead and we'll start with Dr. Solomon. And we'll go in the same order that I called you.
Okay. So hi and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining. I didn't hear a lot of people who are interested in ag and biological engineering, but hopefully by the end of this, I will convince several of you, particularly those who are interested in chemical engineering. Hopefully I'll convince you why you might be interested in considering us. So as was mentioned, my name is Dr. Kevin Solomon. I'm actually Jamaican, grew up in Canada, and now I'm here in the Midwest. Purdue's a lovely place. And in agricultural and biological engineering, we develop methods to efficiently harvest natural resources and convert those into value-added products, whether those are foods, chemicals, and so on and so forth. Ag and biological engineering is unique at Purdue here in that we offer two separate majors. We offer a degree in agricultural engineering, and we also offer a degree in biological engineering, which is where I work. So why biological engineering, and what is biological engineering? Some of you may be familiar with yeast, right? We use yeast to make beer, wine, bread, right? These are little microorganisms that can eat the sugars in a variety of materials. They produce ethanol, they produce gases such as CO2, so that's why your bread rises. That's why your beer and wine have alcohol and so on and so forth. However, there are many other microorganisms that do other interesting chemistries. So for example, during World War II, there were microbes that we used to actually make explosives, right? These things actually fermented a number of different chemicals. Nowadays, we can take not only what nature has given us, we can actually manipulate them. We can use genetic engineering to change their capabilities. And so, for example, many critical medicines such as insulin, antibiotics such as penicillin, these are produced from designer organisms that are grown in specialty equipment. Even some of the foods that you might eat, such as impossible foods, so the artificial meat, the meat substitutes that are on the market, all of these things are made by biological engineers. And so in a nutshell, we are very much interested in developing, identifying and developing custom organisms that can do interesting chemistries for us. We build the support systems to grow them at scale. So essentially the big bioreactors, the actual plant that produces these things. And then we actually purify and package them into a wide array of products. So whether that is an explosive, whether that's a custom material, or that impossible burger that you're eating at Burger King. All of those things are from are part and parcel of biological engineering. And I think that's really fascinating. I mean, like about 150 years ago, as we got better at physics and chemistry, people thought about how to fly, how to make cars. And now that we are getting to that same point, that tipping point with biology, we're now thinking about how can we make designer organisms that can, for example, make custom drugs, that can cure cancer, that can act as biological computers. And so professionally, what my lab does, what I do in my research is we actually develop tools, molecular biology tools that allow us to create these custom organisms, that allow us to engineer them for a wide array of applications that hopefully will form a more sustainable replacement to what the chemical industry can provide. I mean, as oil becomes more expensive and more rare, hopefully biology as a more renewable source will be able to provide.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, Dr. Alexenko. Alina? Yes.
Okay, hi, can you hear me? So Alina Alexenko, I'm a faculty in aeronautics and astronautics, and very recently, starting this semester, also in chemical engineering. So I'm glad there are many aerospace and chemical engineers, future Boilermakers. But I'm glad I'm speaking right after Kevin, because what I do is very much only made possible by the advances in bioengineering and what bioengineers design as in bioreactor, as a process that generates the needed molecules in bioreactors using live organisms. Part of my research is on how to, after that, how to stabilize those. And so part of my research deals with pharmaceutical manufacturing, specifically one of the manufacturing methods, lyophilization. This is something that I'm very passionate about. There are basically two professional topics I'm really interested in. They're very distinct. One is the space technology. And I'm missing my NASA telecon today because I thought this is the event I want to be in. So I do a spaceflight technology development, spaceflight projects with students. And that's on one side, on my aero side. On the chemical engineering side, I use what we know and we have developed for space, but for manufacturing pharmaceuticals and chemical reagents and other materials that are very unstable usually. And we need this very unusual conditions that vacuum provides to make them stable. For example, penicillin was first developed during World War II and very difficult to stabilize. And actually, there's a Nobel Prize that went for invention of penicillin, and part of it went to a person who invented the method of freeze drying to make it stable. And so my research is on scaling up freeze drying technology and making it very efficient and kind of making modern and with all the digital tools that we have now, including large-scale simulations and sensors, and that. And so these are the two topics I'm very passionate about. So one is aerospace engineering. This is something that I don't know if you see it. This is a book about Neil Armstrong. This is just randomly on my office table, and I want to draw. This is I have a bookmark here on Aeronautical Engineering 101 chapter. I recommend you take a look. That's about Neil Armstrong's experience in college at Purdue. And very interesting to read about his first year at Purdue. And he actually took a break and didn't finish in 4 years. And there was a whole historical background that didn't let him do it in one run. And so very interesting. So, and on the other hand, this is my other things. That's this freeze drying technology that I'm really passionate, and I'm really glad that we're working on higher throughput manufacturing process for COVID-19 diagnostics for very advanced RT lamp, CRISPR-Cas12a. It's a whole alphabet. Yeah, so that's actually with some of colleagues from biomedical engineering. So I'd be happy to answer questions about aerospace and chemical to the extent I can. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you so much. Before Dr. Garcia comes, I'd like to point to the chat. So if you go to the bottom of your screen and you it says chat 10, that means there are 10 chat messages. As you have questions, feel free to put them into the chat. Okay, Dr. Garcia.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Well, my name is Edwin Garcia. My interests are, I am in the Department of Materials Engineering. My main interests are on energy, specifically fuel cells, solar cells, rechargeable batteries. I'm interested on an efficient use and a sustainable use of the environment. The tools that I use to do that are computation and theory, so I tend to focus on spending a lot of very basic science, try to take the tools that I effectively learn on my first 2 years as an undergrad and then apply them to very modern problems. What attracted me to this area, to material science, to be perfectly honest, when I started thinking about this question, I ended up thinking of when I was a kid and what led me to start thinking about engineering. And I realized that at the time, without really being able to articulate it, I was interested at the same time on aeronautics, right? I thought that the man being on the moon was very cool. I was very interested in chemical engineering. I was interested about bonds. I was interested on things like how to make things, how to make them efficiently. I was also interested on everyday life things. And as compared to other friends that I had at the time, which were very much interested on doing things like relativity and things like that, even my father was working on things like that, I realized that I really was more interested on being at the intersection of all of this. I wanted to do all of them, and at the same time, I didn't want to do any of them. And I realized as I was exploring for a career I found that materials engineering was allowing me to do that. I could interact with chemical engineers. I could interact with aeronautical engineers. I interact with mechanical engineers almost every other day. And it really gave me the opportunity to jump fields, to have all the basic tools to jump from one field to the other one. And I think, and most importantly, especially as a professor, one of the things that I enjoy the most when I do materials engineering is the ability of being surprised by young people that come with no prejudgment of something being right or wrong, but on the possibility of always finding something new. Okay, they haven't been, and they are not limited by someone telling them it cannot be done. And I really appreciate when they come and tell me, yes, I did it, even though such and such person said it couldn't be done. So yeah, now material science, again, is a multidisciplinary, materials engineering is a multidisciplinary field. So we tend to work on areas, on all the areas that my colleagues just talked about. These days, I'm sure you've seen it. I mean, if you simply pick up your cell phone, there's a lot of electrical engineering in it, but there's a lot of material selection, materials processing, materials design, and all of those, regardless of what field you are, you need to know about how things are made, because except for ideas, everything is made out of something.
Amen. Okay, Dr. Bowman.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Hi, my name is Charlie Bowman. I'm actually in two departments, electrical and computer engineering and biomedical engineering, but I'm more of a electrical engineer by training, and the people in biomedical engineering are really nice and interdisciplinary, and they let me hang around too. So my research involves many forms of imaging, I guess. So imaging is, you all know about taking photographs. Imaging has become really ubiquitous, but people think that, you take a picture and then the sensor just collects an image. Well, what it really does is it collects data, and then that has to be turned into an image. So, for example, in one of the areas I work, it's called CT imaging or medical imaging. If you've ever had to get a CT scan, you lie down on the bed, and there's this big white thing that spins around and makes a whirring sound. And then you get a 3D image of the inside of your body. Well, how do you take the picture of the inside of your body? Well, it turns out you have to use X-rays. You have the X-rays go through at different angles, and you reassemble that like you're building a jigsaw puzzle to put together a reconstruction of the 3D structure of your body. And that has revolutionized medicine, because now doctors don't have to perform surgery to see what's wrong with you. Okay, so that's hugely important. But imaging is pervasive in science and industry and commercial applications. This is an iPhone. The iPhone has a thing called night mode in here. I think the students, probably young people, know about night mode. I'm not sure I would know about it, but it's a big thing because it takes pictures in very low light levels. That was developed by a Purdue engineering student. Okay, and there's also and this is another thing I like. That's Steve Wozniak's signature on the back of that phone. Okay. Anyway, who was the co-founder of Apple along with Steve Jobs. Okay, but anyway, so electrical engineering is interesting, and biomedical engineering is interesting because it applies to so many different things. Okay, and I think it sometimes it's viewed as a little bit more abstract sometimes than some of the other engineering disciplines, because it's a little bit more removed in that you're developing things that apply to a lot of different types of problems instead of it being focused on just a single application. For instance, I work in everything ranging from cell phones to CT scanners to synchrotron imaging for scientific applications. But the other thing it involves is that's kind of hot these days and lots of fun is artificial intelligence. So we do a lot of in electrical and computer engineering. It's not just electrical engineering, it's also computer engineering, which is very closely related to computer science. So it's a similar kind of curriculum to a computer science curriculum, but it tends to have a little bit more orientation towards hardware and applications. And in computer engineering, software development is a big thing. And one of the big things these days is artificial intelligence. And one of the big topics is a thing called deep learning, which you may have heard about. I mean, it's super hot. And one of the things that's so cool about deep learning is that you really don't need a PhD to do it, okay? So it's almost like, a science project. When I was a kid, we had Heath kits. We could build things, you probably don't know what that is. We could build things like radios and stuff. Well, you can build things just as a high school student or even an undergraduate with these techniques, and it's really cool what you can do with it. We have courses in those sorts of topics. So that's why I got into electrical and computer engineering, because I thought it was fun. It applies to a lot of different kinds of applications.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Okay, Dr. Gibbert.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you for coming. My name is Dr. James Gibbert. I am a professor in mechanical engineering. Mechanical engineering is one of the older engineering disciplines. It is very large in that it deals with mechanical systems. It combines material science, manufacturing, modeling, mathematics, physics, and all in how to predict the behavior of mechanical systems and design mechanical systems. And I'm leaving out a lot in that description here. Specifically, I am a dynamicist, or someone who studies objects that are in motion, commonly described by Newton's principles, F equals ma. But I specialize in a field of nonlinear dynamics, where you take a mechanical system and you have one input and you have multiple outputs. And that is on a high level of what I do. But when I use this, my background and training in this, I look at different types of systems, such as how static electricity is formed between rubbing objects, how to weld metal with using a reciprocal motion, or basically sound generated, how to take certain materials and convert their motion into electrical energy. And so these are the things that my group explores. Why I became a mechanical engineer. As a child, I liked to play with blocks. My dad was a contract logger, and he always had me working on his machinery as a kid, and I enjoyed that immensely. And then in high school, I gravitated towards calculus and math. And when I found that in college that I could actually find an area that actually joined all of those together, I jumped on it. And I haven't had a doubt since. I've been doing this. Kind of short and sweet, but hopefully if you have any more questions, you can contact me during this conversation and I can tell you a little bit more about mechanical engineering.
Okay, great. And Dr. Brandon Pitts.
All right, thank you. So welcome everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen to all that we're going to tell you today. So I'm coming representing industrial engineering, which I'm glad I went behind Dr. Gilbert, because industrial engineering is actually it's kind of a spinoff of mechanical engineering, whereas industrial engineering thinks more about the systems and processes that are involved with moving machines, materials, people, and information, for example. And so our history, since some of the other professors gave some history lessons, our history really dates back to the Industrial Revolution, when the nation was able to produce more, and the world for that much, was able to produce more as a result of large-scale powered machines that were able to do things that it took humans a very long time to do. And so people were very concerned and fascinated with how do we make these machines more efficient, which led us actually to the second Industrial Revolution, which dealt with mass production. And so if you think about Henry Ford and his Model T and the assembly line up in Detroit, that was really the second Industrial Revolution, and industrial engineering played a really big role in helping to think about what that was going to look like. Then there's actually been two more industrial revolutions. The second one, the third one deals with computers and automation. Okay, and now we're actually in what people call the fourth industrial revolution, which is cyber physical systems. So it's If you think about computers and automation, that was machines that were programmed to do certain static tasks. But if you think about cyber physical systems and next generation cyber physical systems, those are systems that have the power to behave autonomously, meaning that they don't have to necessarily be programmed for specific tasks, but they can understand what's in the environment and make decisions without a human being present. And you can also control machines remotely. That's different from the first, second, and third industrial revolutions. If you've ever seen the movie Cheaper by the Dozen, the original one, that was actually based off of the lives of two famous, what you would call, I can't think of the name you call, two pioneers in the field of industrial engineers. In the field of industrial engineering, one of them was named Frank Gilbreth. The other one was Lillian Gilbreth, and they were both married. And the movie is basically about these 12 children that they had. He was an industrial engineer, she was a psychologist, and they had to think about how do they optimize their lives to handle 12 kids. And so you can think about, those are some of the principles that industrial engineers might need to think about when they're thinking about optimizing jobs, so on and so forth. But I got interested in industrial engineering because it is one of the most people's oriented engineers and engineering disciplines. And a lot of people have told me that in undergrad, there were a lot of students who got industrial engineering degrees and went to get a master's in business administration so that they had the technical side from industrial engineering and the more business side. Those two were pretty much married. But specifically in my lab, what we're interested in is this idea of human factors. And so that's thinking about how do you optimize the marriage between humans and machines. And specifically, we're interested in next generation autonomous driving. And specifically, we're interested in older adults. If you think about this, people who are 65 and older are the fastest growing age group in the world. And so we're trying to think about what is it going to look like in the future for people who really don't have technological, who are not efficient in terms of using technologies and may not have the confidence to use some of the new technologies. How do we reimagine a future where they are included in the designs of systems? And so we do a lot of human subject experiments where we design autonomous driving or self-driving vehicle scenarios, bring older adults in and can get collect some performance data around how fast do they drive, when an autonomous mode is on, what are their expectations, what is their eye tracking behavior. We have some EEG brain devices that you can actually put onto the head to understand what parts of the brain are lighting up to signify what a person might be thinking about, and those kinds of things. So I'll leave it there, and I'm here to answer questions.
Wow, that's great. I bet you guys are getting a lot of, students are getting a lot of ideas out of this. So now this brings us to our second question. So we want to focus on academic success, because that of course, that's undergirding everything else. So freshmen come to college having experienced a lot of academic success. However, at the college level, some of these same students receive lower grades. Sometimes we see students appear to lower the expectations that they have of themselves. Our question is, why does this happen? What's so different about college that throws students off kilter? And what will it take for students to achieve academic and professional success in college?
So I'll try and keep my answer brief, but I think there are two main things that are going on here. The first thing is that college is a very exciting and new time of your life. It's for many students, it's the first time they're away from home, the first time they don't have to follow curfews or anything like that. And so it can be easy to get carried away and not prioritize their studies. And so what students need to keep in mind is that the reason why you're going to college, the reason why Purdue or whatever university that you choose to attend has chosen to admit you is because you are the best of the best. and we expect you to succeed. And so, but what is required is for you to put in that work and prioritize it. And I mean, you should still also experience all there is to experience, but make sure that that your work comes first. The second thing is primarily psychological. Again, you were the best of the best where you were. And when you put all the best of the best together in one room, somebody will be the best of the best and somebody will not. And so, and for somebody who has excelled for all their life, they may have invested a lot of their identity in being the best. And that can be, that disappointment can be humbling. And so what's key to know is that regardless of how you perform in your classes, that does not define you or your value as an individual. And with that in mind, if you push a little bit harder and not focus on whether the fact that you're not the best person, I think you'll find that success will come a lot more easily.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I completely agree with Kevin. I just, came across this quote that, from my favorite book, that Neil Armstrong actually didn't have really good grades at Purdue at some point. Then it got better, and then he got involved in a lot of. He was in Air Modelers Club, building model airplanes, and participating in a lot of technical competitions, going around Indiana and beyond, and which is actually got his grades to improve. But and it's also answering the passion, but also he also got other things. He had a job in college. He was delivering Purdue Exponent, our student newspaper. He was at some point during summer, working as a salesman, selling knives door to door, kitchen knives. And so there are other things that happen in college, right? And he also got involved in, he did a lot of participation in our musical organizations. And, in the semester of Snow White, he performed in Snow White student play. He received C grades in 2 courses, Psychology for Engineers and Dr. Xu Lo, which is very well-known aerospace engineer, aircraft vibrations, and a D in electrical engineering, direct current class. So, and there's other examples in the other semester. When he was busy performing in land, in another play, he also received C grades in aircraft power plant laboratory and in vector analysis, and even withdrew from a course in introductory nuclear physics. So I think we can agree that a person's the human potential is not measured in grades only. Stuff happens. It's important to know your goals, to do honest work, to be persistent, and to just understand where your priorities are. And it's okay if things are not perfect, the grades are not perfect, we don't live in utopia, we live in real world. It's okay to not have a perfect GPA. Well, that's just my view of it.
I'd like to add on to that. Well, actually, on to what everyone has said. All the students that get into Purdue, we have very rigorous admissions requirements. So every student on this call is one of the best students in the nation, hands down. And there are not many people in this country that can step up to you in terms of academic performance. But when you come to Purdue, you're going to meet a large group of international students from all over the world. And that's what makes you one of the best engineers in the world when you graduate, because you're sharpened by the most intelligent minds on the planet. So you know, you get all these straight A students at Purdue and you have to redistribute them over the normal bell curve, and only maybe 20% will get straight A's. And so now these students have to be redistributed along that curve. And that's where the pressure comes in, because you are competing with a group of students that you probably have not competed with. And even though nationally, you know your status, but internationally, it may be a little bit different. So that's when we see in the MEP office, we see a shift in students because they didn't know that it was going to be that difficult. And professors are trying to shape you so that you can tackle the world's problems. So the exams may not be straight out of the textbook. It may not match that quiz you took last week. And you're looking for things to line up like they may have done in high school. So it's a little bit different approach. They want you to be able to think outside of the box. They want you to be able to solve problems that are not simple. So that makes students sometimes withdraw, and they not withdraw from school, but pull back in their confidence.
Yeah.
And we're all here to build that back up and to do what Alina just said, to encourage you. You know, grades are not everything, but persistence is what will get you through your university experience. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and students to think about that.
That is so true. Before we leave this question, what for faculty do you want for students to have in their mind related to what is it going to take for a student to be successful at Purdue? What's it going to take?
So I'll actually start off with that. So I mean, I think the majority of us have had experiences where grades and performances in whatever form were not what we intended. But one of the things I can certainly remember for myself back in undergrad is whenever I didn't do well on an exam, and some of my friends thought I was crazy, but whenever I didn't do well on an exam, I couldn't wait for the next exam to prove to myself that I could do much better than I had done. And so there was this internal motivation in me that said, I know you can do better than this. And so I really kind of set my sights on what are the things that I need to do. When you first get the grade back, and it's not encouraging, and you may have a day or two where you need to just kind of walk away from things and maybe say a few bad words and and go walk an extra lap around a lake, so on and so forth. But when that point is over, then it's time to kind of sit down and do some self-reflection about what are the things that you need to do to get ready for the next exam. You may hear this term thrown around. There's this idea of metacognition. There are a lot of people in engineering education, for example, that talk about using our metacognitive minds to think about what didn't go right with the exam. Where were the kind of the weaknesses in our understandings and helping us get better. And that's sometimes a difficult conversation to have, but it's one that I think students have to be honest with themselves about. Understand that there were some flaws and gaps in what you thought you knew, and don't get so hung up on that, but then just figure out what are the things that I need to do to try to help myself to move forward. So
I guess I'd like to add a little bit to what Dr. Pitts just said. I think, in what Director Womack just said, I think the biggest mistake coming out of high school and going into college is you're very answer oriented when you come out of high school. You want to look in the book and you want to see, can you get this answer and can you do it this way? And that's not so much what we're testing on in college. We're testing on your knowledge, your deeper understanding of a process. And if you study like you did in high school for the just to see can you get the correct answer, you're going to miss some things. There are going to be some gaps in your knowledge. And so when you have to kind of reset your internal clock about how you approach studying and how you actually fundamentally think about this. And going along with and doing that, typically if you take the pressure off of just getting the right answer and understanding what's physically going on, the grades do come. It may take some time, but they do come. They will improve. And I can attest from this from my own personal experience, because I remember having to do this as a college student. The second thing I can think about as a college student, and it's more practical, but a lot of you guys probably weren't challenged as much in high school as you are in college, and you didn't really necessarily develop the best study skills. You don't really know how to prepare for an exam. And so that's going to take some time, and that's going to take individual learning about yourself and how you learn material best. And I think everyone goes through this. Some of us learn it a little bit faster than others as we transition, but I think everyone does this.
Can I add one more thing to that? So
right ahead.
My thought on the first year as you transition to college is not only transition of location, it's also transition of habits, and in some cases doing things on your own for the first time. Okay, you were probably spending time at your parents when you were in high school. Maybe you are the son or daughter that is the first one to go to college. Maybe you come from a long line of people that have gone to college, and that exerts a pressure that you were not expecting before to have. Maybe you're coming from another country and the foods you're used to are not the ones that you were used to, or simply the group of friends that you had, you were so attached to them that it's also maybe limiting your performance, right? I mean, and I am a big believer that anyone that puts the effort on something can get a good grade and do well. But I also think that when I see a student, when I grade a homework or an exam, and I see a perfect grade, is not a result of that one night. It's a result of being emotionally okay, of being physically fit, and also having had the effort, right? I think it's always an understatement to say that it takes a village, right? So when we are detached, we're removed from where we were coming from, even if it was here at Purdue, you know, kids that are here in West Lafayette and go to their own dorm, they had to go through that transition of maybe some of them don't even know the size of their pants, right? And they have to start doing that on their own. So there are all these distracting things, like Professor Alexander was saying, right? You know, that Armstrong had to go, and he was busy selling knives, right? That's got to be distracting for taking a class, and you have to figure out what are the things that are important to you. You have to figure out what is the network of friends that are going to be encouraging you in a positive way to move forward. Okay? And so so all these things I think will become important as one is going to transition.
Before we move on, Derek, there is a question from one of the students on the chat message. And he's asking, are the students enrolled in the MEP learning community assigned a mentor that can help them with learning college level study tips and how to navigate their first year?
So I can speak to the learning community. There's a course that you take your freshman year. That's the Engineering 180, which focuses on a great deal, a number of tips that students can use to help you. What are all the tools you're going to need to be successful in college? And so we have quite a number of speakers. There are exercises, things that students will do that will be very helpful. We don't have a mentor per se, but you will come in contact with a lot of people who will help you in this process. And of course, that's why we're here, to help you along the way. But that's a great idea. I'd like to ask our faculty this question. What do professors expect from students? What are you expecting from them? What do professors expect from their students?
I guess I expect students that, for example, that take a class to take the class seriously, but at the same time, I expect them to enjoy it, right? just like I try to enjoy, and I'm really enjoying this meeting that we have right now. Okay, I like that when I go to class, I get excited and seeing the students excited on the topic. Okay, and they really dive in. Okay, it took me a while to understand, for example, why in the classes that I enjoy the most, by the end of the semester, I had a couple of students on the front of the classroom just sleeping on their seats. And it's not because they were being disrespectful. It's just that they have been taking it, they were so passionately at learning the topic that they were studying hard and managed to fall asleep in the class, right? So, yeah, what I would like, I like seeing in students usually is how they really enjoy and being part of the community, and you know, seeing outside and not only talking about class but talking about all sorts of other things. Okay, anyway, that's my take on it.
Yeah, Edwin, if I can. I think the first word that came to my mind is curiosity. It's asking beyond what we, ask you, expect you to know. Basically, being able to ask, wanting to ask this question, why, and what else, and just this keeping a curious mind.
Mm-hmm. Curiosity, intellectual curiosity. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Maybe I should ask, what don't you expect? And then you see it. But yeah, go right ahead.
No, so I was just going to say, I mean, yeah, no, curiosity and a willingness to engage in the material. I mean, it's why I come to teach. But when I think students learn and enjoy the process, and so I guess the behavior, what I'm looking for students is for students that trust the process and are willing to fully engage in the material. And what I mean by that is, it can become very easy to think, well, like, what kind of question will Professor Solomon ask such that I get an A? Or like, if I read page 10, can I ignore everything else in the book? And that's not the point. And so I think as long as you can, as long as you make a good faith attempt to engage with material, and even if you don't understand it all, ask those questions, follow up on that material and build those connections. I think that's the best I can ask for.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would second that. So there's a quote that I learned years ago that, and I think students should not look at learning as being kind of like a burden. There's a quote that says, oh, I just had it and I've lost it. So it'll come back to me, but it said that it says that the vessel, that the mind is not a vessel to be filled, but is a fire to be ignited. So I'll say that again. The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but it's a fire to be ignited. And I think most faculty will agree that's the kind of approach we'd like students to have. Is don't think of the things that we're teaching as Dr. Solomon just said, don't think of the things we're teaching as what are the bare minimum things that I need to do. So I'll answer, Derek mentioned, what are some things that we don't want students to do? I can tell you, I've definitely gotten emails from students who ask things like, in our final report, is it, are 5 blah, blah, blah gonna get me this grade, right? We don't want that kind of negotiation. And so you really ought to think of learning as being, and your mind as being a fire to be ignited, something that continuously goes, right? Not this vessel to be filled, not something that you're trying to figure out how much and what's the capacity. But one of the things that I think that'll help students is when you start making connections with things that you're interested in. So one of the things that I didn't mention when I talked about industrial engineering is this coronavirus that's affecting all of us. And there are some people who have interest in healthcare and in medical health systems. And somebody may say, well, what does that have anything to do with industrial engineering? When in fact, if you're talking about moving, studying systems of people, systems of material, systems of machine and information, you can't tell me that that doesn't relate to this COVID-19 crisis. And so a lot of industrial engineers have thought about, both researchers and people who are working in industry, what are some things that I can do to help contribute to this, right? Whether it's the supply chain and logistics, thinking about how do I move masks from one production place to some other, or how do I help people get rapid information and reliable information. And so once you start thinking about those things that get you excited, and you start thinking about how those things fit into the things that you're learning, that'll kind of ignite that fire in your learning.
Wow. So we'd like to delve a little deeper into the minds of professors and ask you this question. What type of student attracts your attention? For the right reasons and for the wrong reasons? What type of student attracts your attention? For the wrong reasons and for the right reasons?
I think the students that attract my attention, and it's not some, it's at first, the first thing that you notice about students, I think it's their communication skills. It's how they interact with you in class, how they approach you in class. And that's a soft skill. It's not a hard science skill, but it's one of the most essential ones that you'll have. And I think it's something that we overlook a lot, and a student overlooks it. You're basically getting practice for how you're going to deal with your professional life when you interact in your classes. And you need to think of it that way. You don't, when you're frustrated, your communication should reflect your frustration, but should be respectful. When you're excited about something, you should show it in the same professional manner. Now, that is the soft skill. The hard skill that kind of reflect, well, I guess the other intangible that I see that I pick, at least when I pick my undergraduate researchers, I love people that are self-motivated, that just want to come and they approach me and they say, look, you talked about this in class, Dr. Jabber. How can I get involved in this? What can I do with this? Did you actually think about this? And those are the students that I look at them, regardless of their grades. Sometimes they have great grades, sometimes they don't. But the fact that they're thinking about what I'm lecturing on, or the concept that I'm introducing, those are the students who may not necessarily do the best in my class, but will probably have the best careers overall as engineers. And those are the students that I actually want on my team when I do research. I want someone that's actually going to think about this, bounce ideas off of. And so and this goes more about transitioning to our research. So in the lecture hall, I'm pretty much have the answers. But when I recruit researchers, I want someone that's going to be more of a sounding board that can actually take the ideas that I have. Sometimes they may be crazy and say, oh, that's cool. Or, let me think about that. Did you think about this? And so those are the skills that I'm looking for in a student.
That's great. Anyone else?
Well, I would add to that in general, I'm looking out always for students that are thinking outside the box, okay, that are not limited by just the one little thing that you were giving in class, okay. When I go and recruit an undergraduate for research, for example, I go and, well, first I wait until the class is over and the grades are submitted in order to approach a student, right? But after that, I am looking out for the student that I can see had an original thought during the class, or someone that did something during the semester that said, oh, even when I was a student, I would have not done that. Okay. For example, there was this class that I had a few years ago, and one of the students, as his term project, he chose that he wanted to work on downloading a software for modeling batteries, and that he was gonna run it himself. I was not expecting him to do that. Okay, and even less when he tried to install it and the code didn't work. And I told him, well, I gave him some advice as to where he could go in that direction. And at some point, he just came to my office and said, is it okay if I call the professor that wrote that code? Which is something that usually students tend to not have the audacity of calling a professor. It was not even an email. He was going to actually call him. Okay, so he called the other side of the country. He called all the way to California. The other professor picked up the phone and I said, oh yes, that code that I posted had a bug. So here is the real code. Okay, and at that moment I said, oh, I want to work with this guy because he had initiative. He was working on something that it was definitely not something I assigned him to do. Okay, but and so anyway, that's my personal anecdote on that regard.
Wow, that's great. What does the successful student look like? Not only in college, but in their professional career or as they prepare for their professional career. What does the successful student look like?
I guess I could jump in here. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
I think certainly if you're talking about, especially if you're talking about industry, the most, what they really value mostly is not just grades. I mean, they like to see good grades, but really grades are not the most important thing. What they're really looking for are students, if employees that have integrity and that they can trust and are committed to what they do and love their work and really put their effort into it, care about what they do. So, I think that, that's really a great strength of Purdue, that we instill those values in students. And also what we've heard a lot, which I totally agree with, but I'll reiterate, which is initiative. They really like students that show initiative. And just to pick up on one other theme is that a lot of students coming from high school, even in high school, maybe, well, these days, I guess some of the high schools are quite big, but still it's usually a smaller kind of environment. You've probably done pretty well there. And when you come to Purdue, one of the things that's so great about it is it's so, well, okay, it's huge, but it can be small, but there's so much to take advantage of. Okay, there's so many things out there. And it's like going to Disney World, okay? So you can go, whatever, it's the Magic Kingdom to Epcot. But the thing is that you have to reach out. If you have to get to know people, you have to talk to people, you have to take initiative. And sometimes it's a little scary, especially I think these days, a lot of kids spend a lot of time on their cell phones and things. Maybe they're not used to talking to people. Unfortunately, this COVID thing is not helping, but what are you going to do? But and it's fine to do things and make mistakes. Okay, I think it's better to make a few mistakes. You learn from the mistakes, but go out, talk to people, and I think you'd be amazed that people think that the faculty don't want to talk or whatever, but that's totally not true. I think most faculty are very open. Students come and ask questions. It's exciting for them. It's motivating. So, I really encourage that. It's better to err on the side of sort of jumping out and asking a question, because you'll learn more that way. And so you take initiative.
Take initiative.
I'd like to ask a question, Derek, of the professors. They called them gateway classes. When I was at Purdue, they were called flunk out classes. But I know in particular for me, WE201 made me go to church more than I ever did. And also ME200, thermodynamics. And I'm sure there's that class in aero, and there's the class in materials, but I wanted to start with those two, thermo and WE201. you know, what, I don't want to think that it's intentional, but there are some concepts, there's a mind shift that has to happen when you take something like EE201, electrical circuit design, or beginnings of that, and thermal refrigeration and heat transfer. You know, by the time I figured out refrigeration, they had moved on to something else, and I wanted them to go back so I could prove that I finally got the refrigeration part, but it moved so fast. So I just wanted to ask the professors, just talk about, just for a minute, what is it that you are doing with the student for those classes, and how can they prepare themselves to do well in the gateway classes and not see them? So some students think that it's a trick, you know, everybody's trying to get them out of school, and that's really not it.
I guess I can start with this. So I guess the gateway classes in ME are ME 200, 270, and 274, which are thermodynamics, statics, and dynamics, I guess, because all of those have their varying degrees of bad reputations among the students. And it's not intentional. We're not trying to ruin your academic career or flunk you out of engineering. What we're trying to do is to make you actually become a problem solver and not just a problem regurgitator. So you're actually taking, giving you a set of conditions and see, can you actually synthesize a problem and come up with an answer? And we're not, it goes back to this idea of not looking in the back of the book. Because if we usually don't grade these classes on the right answer. We grade them on, do you apply the right problem solving techniques? And that is different. That's a different mindset for most people that are coming out of high school and even coming out of your freshman engineering courses. So you're still focused on, did I get this answer right? Or I found this old exam and can I work it to get this, work it exactly to get this answer? And that's not, those types of preparations aren't going to make you successful in the class. The other thing is these classes require a large time commitment. And so in order to develop this engineering problem solving skill set, you're going to need to study more than you've studied in the past. And there's nothing that we can do about this. And it comes down to the self-motivation, self-discipline, but these are the skills that you're going to need to succeed. And it just happens that they're at the beginning of your engineering career that you just run into this brick wall. And it happens to everyone. And it's not just going to happen to you, it happened to everyone here. Now, like I said, it's how quickly you learn to adapt that basically tells the story of your grades. But we've all encountered the same problem.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that and just reinforce that these classes are not intended to weed people out. It's not like, for example, there are 100 students who need to take out 40. As was just mentioned, this is really to help you develop the skills needed to be a competent and skilled engineer in your discipline. And so what I think is critical, I think, is if you have a subtle shift in your frame of mind. So rather than thinking this is how they're going to kick me out of, and so I won't be like an electrical engineer or mechanical engineer, and take it in the spirit that's intended, i.e. this is what I need to do to become a professional in my field. I think you will have more positive outcomes. I think a lot of things are psychological and they become self-fulfilling prophecies. And so I think if you have a more positive outlook, I think you at the very least the process will seem less painful.
Yeah. So I would second that, and I'll just say, okay, I'll second that, and I'll say that. Can you guys hear me? I'm getting some.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll second this and say that one of the things, especially in these thermodynamics, statics, dynamics courses, that I think a lot of students don't realize, sometimes when they first approach those courses, they're consumed with fear. But one of the I think best pieces of advice I've been given and I've actually tried to follow is those first few courses. So those first few class sessions are very critical, because in courses like that, the content builds, it just keeps building and building and building. And so if it's the first week of class, for example, and there are a lot of student organization get-togethers that are happening, and you say, oh, well, you know what, I'll just lose this 1 week and I'll catch up next week. But then next week the professor has moved on, then you've got now 2 weeks of information to kind of get caught up on. So I just want to stress that really those first few class periods in these courses, thermodynamics, statics, and dynamics, and even streams of materials, it's very important that you get a good foundation in those first few classes of what's going on, because throughout the semester, everything really just builds, it just keeps building and building.
I think Professor Pitts said it very well. I think the classes like thermodynamics, statics, I guess maybe circuits, are foundational classes. And I have taught thermodynamics 4 or 5 times since I've been here at Purdue. And when I approach the students, especially on the first day of classes, I tell them, I'm not teaching this class to be popular. I'm teaching this class because I love working with students to be able to learn how to think. Okay, and the topic of thermodynamics is very foundational. There are only 3 little rules that you can't break. Okay, and everything around that is fair game. Okay, and my point is that the problems around it will, at least the way I approach it, will give you the tools, the building blocks, so that when you move to other areas, you can say, oh, I might not remember that problem I solved, but I do remember the fundamental where that came from, so I can solve a completely new problem. Okay, and to me, that's the key of being an engineer, is you have a new problem, how do I solve it?
I have a question from the students on the chat, so I'm gonna pose it for the professors to answer. One student says, what can we do now to be proactive or to prepare ourselves? And then I have a second question after that. What can we do now to be proactive or to prepare ourselves?
So I would like to, so you are already proactive. You are here on this call, so that's great. You're already connecting with resources that are available on campus. And you're making a plan and making, these decisions of where you can, who you can reach out to. I want to say that part of it is specifically for gateway, well, for required foundational courses that are taken by many majors. These are often large courses, MEP 200 thermodynamics, MEP 270, MEP 274, math courses, physics courses. There are great resources that are available on campus, including Minority Engineering Program runs an academic success center, tutoring center, which went virtual in middle this semester. And in addition to that, I want to specifically recommend you to take a look at supplementary instruction that's available at Purdue. It's a research-based program. When I teach fluid mechanics, I always enroll in that program. So supplementary instruction is available to my students. And there is data showing that students who go to 8 sessions of supplemental instruction, no matter what their grades are, or they improve their GPA in that the grade by about half a grade.
What is supplementary? They call it SI. What is?
They call it SI. Yeah, it's known as SI. Mm-hmm. And that's a great program. You get to work with a peer mentor, student who has succeeded in the course, that have specifically been prepared and is passionate about helping other students. So that's being proactive, understanding what resources are available, and utilizing them all. That.
Yes.
Thank you. Should I, anybody else wants to answer that, or should I go ahead and move on with the next question from the
Well,
student?
I'll just add one very quick thing. In terms of being prepared, I think you should really think about your schedule. And usually you'll have undergraduate advisors that'll help you be able to determine the right number of hours to take and what actual courses need to or should be taken. So if you only want to take 12 hours, then maybe it's okay to take 2 difficult classes at the same time. But if you need to take 16 hours, for example, then you may not want 2 or 3 kind of these traditional, the way we think of it, traditional, more difficult courses. So I think strategizing about your schedule, your course schedule, is going to be very important to help you succeed. If some courses require more time than others, then you'll want to just make sure you're considering those factors when you're planning out your semester course schedule.
Thank you, Dr. Pitts. Okay, so the next question is, would you say that we would need to dedicate 20 hours, about 20 hours per week studying? It sounds like I'll need to have good time management skills as well as note-taking skills.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And note-taking, I think, in my opinion, I think things have changed a lot with electronic delivery, but I think note-taking is an important skill because, you know, at least when I was an undergraduate, I took a lot of notes. I didn't always look at them afterwards, but they really help focus your attention during the class. And yeah, 20 hours per week studying, that's, yeah, basically, yes, you'll need at least that, I would say. When you're, I mean, maybe, okay, in my opinion, you know, when, of course, I know people have like jobs. I had a job as an undergraduate, like a regular paid job. People need that sometimes for the income, and it's a nice diversion. But basically, when you're an undergraduate, you need to be focused body and soul on what you're doing because it's a challenge. But it's a challenge that's very rewarding and can be very enjoyable.
So just to add to the 20 hours, I think it takes what it takes. I would not necessarily like set a budget and hold yourself to that. I think depending on your comfort level, et cetera, it may be higher or lower. However, a general rule of thumb is that I think it's expected of us that for every credit hour that you spend in the, so for every hour of lecture that you are in the classroom, you're expected to spend about 2 or 3 outside of class, generally speaking. And so you can extrapolate out from that how much time you can spend. I think each course is about 3 hours per week, and you're taking 4 or 5 classes a semester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to tag on him. That is the rule that I've heard too. For every credit hour, 2 to 3 hours. So to be aggressive, you can say if I'm taking 15 credit hours, I'll probably study 45 hours per week on that. So people treat school as a full-time job, which means if your first class starts at 10:30, that doesn't mean you get up at 10:15. You should get up. Regardless, you know, and I've got students that they say, well, I don't have a class till 1:30. Well, you should still be up by 7, you know, and treat it like a full-time job. If you have those hours free, then use that to knock out some of the homework or to brush up on your class notes or to go visit your professor. But you will be treating it as a full-time job, and that will keep you from falling into the cracks of thinking that that later hour of a class means that you can continue to sleep. You do need to get your rest though, but treat it as a full-time job.
Yeah. Another thing I'll add is I think most people, when they come out of high school, and I don't know what it's been like for most of you on the call, and I don't know how things have changed. It's been more than a decade since I've been out of high school now, getting close to 2, believe it or not. But I was just gonna say, a lot of students in high school have only really had to do work Monday through Friday. One of the biggest adjustments to college, and you'll see this once you get to your third and fourth year, when you talk about group projects, semester-long projects, we're now talking about extending those work days out through the weekend. And that sometimes is uncomfortable for students. They get to Friday and they kind of breathe and say, oh, thank goodness I made it through this week. And now I've got Saturday and Sunday to kind of do whatever I want. As Director Virginia Booth mentioned, you definitely want to take time for yourself, right? You're going to need to kind of have balance, right? Think about the physical, the mental, the spiritual, if you're of that. And so you'll want to balance those things, but I just want to tell you that the weekend is not necessarily off. And so I don't know if other professors agree with that, but that's a hard lesson that I had to learn. So.
Thank you. Okay, Derek, since we only have 10 minutes, I don't know how you want to proceed. We have 2 more questions on the
go ahead and read those 2 questions.
Okay, so because there is another one, but I saw that Dr. Alexenko already texted Angelica back. So the first question is, how hands-on is the mechanical engineering curriculum and all the engineering curricula in general? Should I read the second question or?
Well, let's just go, let's deal with that first.
Okay.
Okay, so the ME curriculum in itself is structured that during your sophomore and junior level classes, that you will have opportunity to have a lab class that's typically tied. Some are tied to the class, some are tied not, some are separate, but they're to reinforce the concepts that you've learned in a traditional lecture. So that is one way that it's hands-on, and that you get some practical lab experience. The other way that you can get hands-on experience is that you can work in a research lab with being an undergraduate researcher. And then there's various engineering clubs that are around in other societies. So there's SAE, there's Baja, there's Engineering Without Borders. So there is a way to actually practically apply your knowledge that you're learning in the classroom through multiple avenues at Purdue. And I think all our curricula are set up the same way across. So what you see in ME, you'll have the same opportunities in aero and bio, in electrical and industrial also.
And materials.
And materials.
Yeah, Professor.
Great, thank you. Oh, did I interrupt something?
Yeah, so what Professor Gibbert said, that all of our majors require hands-on experience and provide that hands-on experience, and you can start the first year, actually. Our engineering design classes, the introductory engineering classes, have a hands-on design component, especially if you take EPICS or VIP sections. You will be immediately part of a student project team working on a real life project that comes from either our community partner, that's an EPICS program, Engineering Projects and Community Service, or VIP program, which is Vertically Integrated Projects. That will be part of your curriculum from the very beginning. And Vertically Integrated Projects program in particular, you can engage in this multi-semester undergraduate research projects with faculty members or as part of your club. There are several VIP teams that are based on competitions like the ASE Baja or Lunabotics, or there are several other, PSP in Aero, that's Purdue Space Program, and so I really recommend you taking a look at those hands-on opportunities to get immediately involved. And this is also EPICS VIP programs. They're described sometimes as internships before, like a job before a job, or internship before a real internship, because they give you a very much a real life engineering experience.
That's great.
Thank you, Dr. Alexenko. I think Angelica just clarified her question, and when she meant if they were available now, she meant the supplementary classes and resources that you were talking about. So since you have the platform, I thought you could answer to that.
I will put it right there, Bonnie, in the text, in the chat. I'll put the link, okay?
Thank you, yes. And I think maybe for the sake of time, this will be the last question, or otherwise, Derek, you might correct me.
Right.
So this one says, how would you categorize the success of Purdue's online only learning scenario to this spring? And what can we expect for a future mix of online learning for the 2020-2021 year?
So I can maybe just give a brief answer to that. I think the real answer is we're finding out now. We are understanding how how are our students what they think about their experience. And we're wrapping up right now a survey of remote learning experiences that we have. Last time I checked, over 600 responses. And very briefly, I think what we can glance now as some of the lessons is that number one is people matter more than technology. So what most students and majority of our students said that there was at least one course that worked really well. And that was because of the human connection, because of the way they were able to interact with professors still. And many students saying that it was very helpful to have the lectures, the lecture recordings and all the materials accessible after the actual live lecture. Right. So that was one observation. There was also many students found at least one course that didn't work well. And we, of course, were always asking and looking at what didn't work well and what we can improve now that we have time to prepare. And there's a very large number of courses that we are now during even May, and over the summer we'll be preparing for hybrid delivery. Based on those lessons, based on the type of technologies that our students found most useful, that are working better for them. And some of them are surprising. I haven't heard of those technologies, including some of them. Some of them are very much what we're using all the time. Some of them, so there was one that is a gaming platform that is used for Q&A. That was surprising to me. I'm not much informed. So we're learning. The question is, we're learning, and we will meet our students where they are, and in terms of what their learning needs are.
Wow, we're running out of time. We'd like to take time to thank all of our faculty for coming and being with us today. I see there is one question we did not answer from Kai Gibbs. Maybe we can get with him offline and talk. But we want to take time just to let you guys know how much we appreciate you. Students, if you have any feedback and would like to say anything to the professors about how this experience has been for you, as you can see, we're almost at 5 o'clock. But with the remaining time, I would like to turn things over to the hands of the director of our program, Mrs. Virginia Booth Womack.
I just want to say, I don't know, maybe everybody needs to mute because my computer is so sensitive. But Derek, you did a fantastic job on pulling this together. I really enjoyed listening to the professors, looking at the student questions, and even that last question by Kai, I read that.
All right.
And that's a real problem, Kai. You hit the nail on the head. But you learn how to separate from parental government over time when you go to college. And sometimes it's bittersweet and sometimes it's just sweet. But you do learn how to do that over time. But to the professors that came on, I really thank you for taking out this time. I know there are so many things you could be doing right now, probably things you put on the back burner. So it's not a small thing that you have given this time to us. And I will say this about the COVID, it has created a much stronger, tight-knit family. And you see that here. I've never been in this kind of environment where I actually sit with professors and incoming freshmen, and we have this type of intimate exchange. And I hope that that continues because we do have this opportunity now to meet students where they are. To Dr. Alinka's comment, this is a very different environment that we're in with the social distancing and all the requirements to make sure that you as incoming students are not subjected to any type of medical condition or incident around COVID-19. So we're going to continue to practice every safe measure that we have. We're going to continue to utilize this type of platform. And I think that even though this was set up as our last session, I don't think it's going to be our last session because for those that accepted their admissions application, there are going to be some questions that they're going to have. And so for you that are online now, if you would send your questions to Mr. Williams, we will put those questions in themes or categories and design some MEP live sessions specifically around your needs. We want to make sure that you know that you're supported, not feel like that, but know that you are supported at Purdue. And we know that you've chosen the best school out of all your options. And if there are people on the line that haven't made that choice, I'm expecting you to make it by June 1st and participate in the Engineering Academic Bootcamp if you're able to do so. For department heads, I will be reaching out to see if any of you would like to support or serve as a mentor or a supporter for the bootcamp, and we can design some initiatives for you to meet with students that are interested in your major. So we're just going to keep those doors open. It is 5:01. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to the MEP staff that's here. We can see their pictures. I didn't want to take too much time, but there's no way I can do anything that I do without you and without the excellent service that you provide to MEP. So thank you and good night.
Everyone.